I wanted to upgrade my outdoor seating area without spending a ton of money, and so I decided to build my own. And this is the final product. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I made the couch, chairs, and the coffee table. So this is the vibe I was going for, but I definitely didn't want to spend close to $4,000 on it because that's insane. But I love how it turned out. I am hosting a lot at my house because my volleyball court. But so far, we have loved it. So first thing you're going to need to do is obviously go down to your local lumber store and pick out what you want to do for your project. I went with the cheapest wood possible just because this was kind of a trial and error project for me, but you could do it with a much nicer wood as well. And I am definitely not savvy enough with my DIY projects to be able to do this on my own. So I actually used plans from the Woodshop Diaries. I'm going to link her website below. It was so easy to follow. It gives you the dimensions of everything that you need to cut, as well as step-by-step instructions, and she's got videos as well. But this is just my experience doing all three and what I learned from doing it. You are going to need a miter saw for this project. I would start by cutting your 4x4 pieces. These are going to be the bases for the couch as well as the chairs. And the plans are exactly the same for both of those, it's just the middle section that's different. And once you have those cut out, you are going to want to sand it down really good. They do have wood stripper machines, and so if you have one of those, obviously use it, but most people don't. And so the sanding is it's not my favorite part. We'll just say that, but it is necessary so that your guests don't get splinters. Once I had all of the 4x4 base pieces cut out, I lined them all up to make sure that they were perfectly symmetrical because as you're building a right side and a left side of the chair or couch, obviously they're going to have to be exactly the same. Otherwise, your whole project is going to be completely thrown off. There were a few pieces that I had to go back and cut a tiny bit off, and then I would go ahead and re-sand that just to make sure that they were perfect. Another couple of tools that you are going to need for this project that I had to go out and buy, but now I love them and I'm glad I have them. First of all is an extra large Craig jig set as well as just your normal one that can use your 2x4s, but you have to do extra large pocket holes in order to secure the chair legs together. The extra large kit comes with the drill bit that you'll use for this, but I will say it definitely takes some muscle to get it in there. If I had to do this project over again, I would have done wood clamps right off the bat because then you can hold these things together versus me. I'm trying to hold it onto the 4x4 with my arm. So yeah, just go ahead, buy yourself some wood clamps because that's going to make this project a lot easier. Once you have your 4 pocket holes done, this is actually going to be the arm of the couch and the chair. Then wood glue is also going to be your best friend with this project. And what I discovered after doing this is that you can let it sit and dry. In this video, I went ahead and did the pocket hole screws right off the bat. But in the second one, I ended up letting it dry first, and then it's so much easier to go ahead and secure it. For these base pieces, you do need 4-inch pocket hole screws, and you want to make sure that they are outdoor quality, of course. For this second base piece, I just did some Gorilla Wood glue and made sure that it was perfectly lined up, and I allowed it to dry for a little bit before I went back and then put in the screws. Okay, this next part of the project can be a little bit tricky, and it is important to get it right. This is why the project plans are so convenient because it tells you what degree to cut each side of the wood to, and then also how much length there should be below it so that you can make sure your measurements are perfect. And the reason it's slanted just a little bit is because that way the wood slats that you sit on are slanted down a little bit so that it's a much more comfortable chair. During this whole project, I would cut as I went, and then I would sand in between, and it just kind of broke it up a little bit. I did utilize the wood glue as well for this, and I just kind of propped it up with a scrap piece of wood below it and let it dry for a little bit before going ahead and securing it with 2.5-inch wood screws. For this chair that I was working on, I was a little bit OCD over making sure it was perfect. It got a little bit easier the next go around, but yeah. Okay, now we are done with the legs of the chair and the couches, and it's time to secure the back on. And you'll have already cut this piece out if you follow the plans and you cut it out with the rest of the 4x4. So we're going to make sure that the bottom of it is perfectly lined up with the base of the chair. So hopefully that gives you a good reference point on the position to put it in. I also used wood glue for this and allowed it to dry before going back in and doing 2 pilot holes where I wanted the screws to be. For this section of the chair and the couch, you will need 4.5-inch regular wood screws, not the pocket holes that you've been using before, but 4.5-inch regular outdoor wood screws. Once those are secure, the plans actually call for a 1x2 to go on the back of that chair. I did use a 1x2 for the first part of the project, and then I switched to using 2x2s just because this is what you're going to secure the back slats into, and it works a lot better if you've got a little bit more wood there. So that's my recommendation, is do a 2x2. You're going to cut it to the exact same length as the back of that chair, and then make sure that you have enough room for the slats, and then do some pilot holes, and then just do regular 2.5-inch wood screws, not pocket hole screws, but regular ones. Okay, we are through the hard part and we are now on the home stretch of the chair. As I mentioned, I was cutting along the way and sanding, and so this is the seat slats. I love this thing. It is a Craig jig set, and now I just want to use it all of the time. It makes doing pocket holes so convenient. This isn't sponsored, but I would love to be sponsored by a company like this, so hit me up. But yeah, I just want an excuse to use this thing. Once I had all of my pocket holes done, then I put one leg up on the table and I glued and secured the front section in. And you're going to put this into the 4x4. Once that piece is secure, we are then going to put in the very back seat slat. So this is what you're going to sit up against. And as you can see there, you just kind of line it up with that supporting piece, and you secure it in with 2.5-inch wood screws on both of those. So then for this, you are going to need to use a little bit of muscle to lift that piece that you just secured those 2 slats into up on the chair. And the Olympics were going on while I was working on this project, so that's when it's fun to have my TV outside, because then I could take little breaks and yeah, watch the track and field. Okay, back to the project. Once you have lifted that up and you have it lined up exactly where you want it to be, then you secure those once again in with 2.5-inch screws, and you can pull the chair down. As you can see, we've almost got an actual functioning chair. This next part is pretty simple. You're going to take 3 of the slats that you'd already cut out, and then you just can space them out how you see fit. If you want to measure them out to make sure it's perfect, that's great too. And then just put them in pocket holes and 2.5-inch wood screws. Based on how the chair is, these slats can all be the exact same size, but when it comes to the back slats that you're going to lean up against, just because of the way that the legs might be and the way that the angle of that supporting structure is, they might not be exactly the same, at least in my experience. And so I waited and then measured them out one by one, because the very top might bow out a little bit more than the very bottom piece. These back slat pieces do secure into that 2x2. Remember, the project plans ask for 1x2s, but this is where I'd recommend doing 2x2s, because then you have a greater surface area that you're able to drill into. I would also do pilot holes and then use just regular 2.5-inch wood screws to put those in. As you can see, I was running out of daylight here, but this is the final product of the chair before I stained it. Now, moving on to the rest of the project, the cool thing is that you already know how to do the majority of the couch. The only thing that's going to be different that we're going to go through is the center section. So we're going to have just a simple 4x4 where we secure the 2x4s, one on each side, into it. And this is what the front supporting section of the couch is going to be. It's kind of an awkward angle to get it secured in, just to make sure that it was perfectly level with the top of the 4x4 because of how long the slats are, but was able to get that secured. I then set this section down just to make sure that it was level, and I propped up both sides of the couch against some of my patio furniture, and then just started by securing one end in and then the other one in. And this goes to show you don't need a fancy workshop in order to do DIY projects. I just built it where it was going to go outside. Once you have that front supporting structure secured into both of the legs, then you can tip the couch over and secure the first back seat into the very back. These pieces are so easy because it's just a regular 2x4. The only thing I would caution is to make sure that it is one that is pretty level and flat. Once you have that first seat slat in, you can flip it back over, and then you are going to put the very first backrest slat in. In order to do this, I used a scrap piece of 2x4 on each of the sides, just to make sure that I got it exactly where I wanted it to be and that it was level. And then similarly to the chair, I did a pilot hole screw before using a regular 2.5-inch wood screw in order to secure it into those 2x2s. This next part of the couch is the only part that I would say kind of sucked. And it was just growing pains, right? Just a little bit of learning for me. The plans will show you how you need to bevel this section, and that's so that it can create an angle to support the middle weight section of the couch. At this point, I had built 2 chairs, and I felt like I was pretty comfortable with this project, and I still could not for the life of me get these 2 pieces secured. Once again, just go out and get a nice set of wood clamps, because that would have made this whole project way easier. But I did finally get the piece secured, and I will show you my mistake here in a moment. The part that I missed filming is that once you get these 2 pieces together, you then secure that into a 4x4 that is slightly angled, and that becomes the middle support section, and the 4x4 is at the very back of the couch to help support that weight. Well, I went off of the measurements in the plan. I should have measured myself because I was an inch or 2 short, and I had to completely redo that piece. And I think I was so frustrated that I forgot to film altogether. Sometimes you just got to walk away and come back. Now that we're done with that middle piece though, it is smooth sailing from here. You only need 3 pieces for the back support. So I started by putting the top piece into the 2x2s, and then I secured the middle piece. As I mentioned before, for the seat slats, it is pretty important for those 2x4s to be perfectly flat. This is probably my biggest regret from the project, is that the ones that I picked out from the store, they looked good, but when you actually lay them down, they don't lay perfectly flat, just probably from water damage or whatever else. And so it was a little difficult to get these secured. I wanted them to be as level as possible without compromising the structural integrity of it. So I just kind of worked it from side to side. These are just pocket hole screws, and then just a regular 2.5-inch wood screws again. For this project, I would recommend starting with the chair, just because if you screw up with the couch, you're wasting quite a bit more wood, and then it makes the couch just that much easier. Now, the next debate of this project is what color to stain them. And I spent quite a bit of time in the stain aisle in Home Depot before deciding on doing a couple of samples. I would recommend doing this because you can take some scrap pieces of wood, and then you can put the stain on, and then put it up against your project and see which color you want to go with. I decided to go with the darker of the 2 samples there, just because I figure if it fades, it's probably going to fade into more of that lighter color. The stain I chose to go with was a bare semi-transparent outdoor stain called Redwood Cedar. The staining is definitely the easiest part of this project. I did use paper though, that I got from Home Depot, just paint paper for this, because it did get a little bit messy and I didn't want to stain my concrete. I bought a fairly large brush that is used specifically for staining decks, and this was nice for the big chunks. And then I used a smaller brush in order to clean up any drippage and then get into any of those tight nooks and crannies. And supposedly this stain makes it so that you don't have to seal it, because it essentially is a stain and sealer. I just went through and did 1 coat. I think you can do 2 if you want it to be darker, but this is how it turned out with 1. I love the color. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. And this is what it looks like with the cushions. I will link them below in my Amazon storefront. I got them during Prime Day, so they were pretty cheap. But then you can also buy covers for the cushions as well if you want to change the colors, or if they ever get gross and run down, you can just switch them out. So at this point in time, I was pretty over this project, but I did want a coffee table as well because you need somewhere to put your drinks or to put your feet up if you're sitting and hanging out with some friends. So this coffee table is actually really easy to do. I did it in 2 afternoons, whereas the couch and the chair took me quite a bit longer. I'm not gonna lie. For the coffee table plans, you do have to bevel a couple different pieces of wood. And so if you are not sure how to do that, your miter saw on the back should have a setting here that you can change. The plans have exactly what degree you need to turn them to. But I was like, yay, I'm learning something new. Again, obviously I feel really comfortable with my miter saw, but I haven't ever had to bevel anything. But for this coffee table, I did. And I will say, in case you're new to DIY projects, I feel like the majority of the time is me just double checking measurements and making sure that everything is perfect. A lot of times, if you spend the appropriate amount of time on the front end doing the prep work, then it makes the outcome a lot better and it will save you a lot of time from having to fix your mistakes halfway through. For the coffee table, the way that the top secures into the 4x4 legs is just a little bit staggered, so you end up doing the pocket holes really close together. So I thought this was unique and definitely different from anything that I had done with the couch or the chair. Once you have your first piece with the pocket holes done, then I measured the 4x4 to make sure that I was putting it in the middle, and then I secured those with the 2.5-inch wood screws. Once you have the first side done, then you can flip it over and then secure it into the other leg. And then next thing you know, you have half of the supporting structure, and it should stand on its own and not be wobbly or anything. So then you just go ahead and repeat that on the opposite side. So you're making the exact same thing, just opposite of it. And just a side note, this coffee table was so easy to build that I think I'm going to just try to make the dimensions bigger and do the exact same design, but do an actual outdoor table. So once you have the 2 bases done, then you're going to cut out a little 2x2 and you're going to do pocket hole screws into that. And that is what is going to secure the 2 pieces together. I made sure that they were both completely flat and they weren't wobbly before I went and secured them in. In order to do this, I set one of the sides down and put both of those in before then flipping the other side down and setting it on top of it. That's what I found worked the best. And just like that, you have the entire base of your coffee table done. So now we are going to make the top of the coffee table, and this is just 4 pieces of 2x4s with pocket hole screws in each of them, and then we just secure them in. And obviously the side with the screws is going to be what we flip over, so you don't see those on the top. But once the 4 pieces are all together, then you set that on the ground and you set the base that you built on top of it. You secure this in with just regular 2.5-inch wood screws. I did do pilot holes in each of the spots just because I feel like that helps the screw go in easier. And just like that, you are so close to being done. You then take a 1x2 piece and you put those into the long side and just secure those in with the 2.5-inch wood screws as well, pilot holes, yada yada. You know the drill at this point in time. And for the final remaining pieces of the top, you're going to take a 1x6 and cut each of those. I decided to stain it before securing the 1x6s just because it would be really difficult to get the stain in between each of those. So I stained the entire bottom as well as stained the tops, the 1x6s. And then I actually used wood glue in order to secure these together. You can secure them with brad nailers, and I think that I'm actually going to go back and do that. But at first, I just started with wood glue. I did the 2 outsides, and then I figured out where I wanted the 3 middle pieces to go and just eyeballed it and separated them as best as I could. This is the final result with the entire set together. I absolutely love how it turned out, and I love even more that I have the look of a $4,000 outdoor furniture set, but it only cost me about $400 all in. So thanks for watching, guys. If you want more content like this, please like and subscribe.